This topic is going to introduce you to exponent laws. There are a total of 5 exponent laws. Algebra Nation covers them all in topic 5, but we've decided to break it apart into 4 videos to make it a little bit more manageable. I believe these 2 laws, the negative and zero exponent laws, are somewhat easy to understand. So let's take a look. Remember what an exponent is. A lot of people say, oh, it's the little number, okay? An exponent tells us how many times we multiply our base. So if I wanted to complete this table, I want you to try and complete it on your own. If you have to grab a calculator, that's okay, all right? But I want you to see what's happening every time we take our exponent and decrease it by 1. So let's do that together. 2 to the 4th power. That means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That gives me 16. 2 cubed means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. 2 to the 1st power just means 2. You're only putting it once. Then 2 to the 0, meaning I don't have any. Now this one's a little hard to figure out, but take a look at your pattern so far. As you go from 2 to the 4th to 2 cubed to 2 squared to 2 to the 1st, what's happening every time you go down? If you said you're dividing by 2, you're right. So think about what 2 to the 0 power would be. Go back up. 2 to the 1st was 2. So let's divide that by 2. You'd get 1. Okay, well then let's go to the negative. This does not make your answer negative. I need you to write that down in capital letters, bold, underline, whatever you need to do. A negative exponent does not make your answer negative. We're still going with that same pattern. We divide the answer by 2. So 1 divided into 2 is 1/2. Same thing with our next one. We divide 1/2 into 2 equal parts. We'd get 1/4. Okay? That doesn't just work for a base of 2. Let's go look at a base of 10. Look what happens. When I have 10 to the 4th, that's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. I'd get 10,000. 10 cubed is 10 times 10 times 10. That's 1,000. 10 squared is just 10 times 10, so 100. And then 10 to the 1st is just 10. So with that pattern, every time I decrease my exponent by 1, I'm dividing by 10. I'm dividing by the base. So 10 to the 0 is 1. Well, again, I'm going to divide by 10. So I'd get 1/10. And then I'd get 1/100th. So how does the value of the exponential expression change when you decrease the exponent by 1? So please write this down under A. Every time the exponent is decreased by 1, the answer is divided by the base. That's basically what's happening. That's the math behind it. Remember, pause the video if you need to write it down. So here's the chart we just completed. So now I'm giving you a hypothetical. I want to see if you can figure this out. What do you think the value of 5 to the negative 2nd power is? Well, here's how I would do this. Let's go back for a second. What is 5 squared? Because then I can work down. I can divide by 5. And then I can divide by 5 again. So 5 to the 1st would be 5. 5 to the 0 is 1. 5 to the negative 1 is 1/5. So 5 to the negative 2 is 1 over 25. What I want you to do is take a close look here, because this is basically telling you what's going to happen with negative exponents. And we're going to get on that, and you're going to have a whole explanation. But look very closely. The answers almost look the same, except on my negative exponent, I just wrote the reciprocal. Okay? So here is your zero exponent law. You've probably noticed it already. Any base, I don't care what your base is, if it's a variable, if it's a whole number, if it's thousands, if it's a fraction, any base that has an exponent of 0 will always equal 1. Always. And I would write these 3 examples down. Notice, 5 to the 0 power, 1. 1,256 to the 0 power, 1. A to the 0 power, 1. It's that straightforward. It's almost like vocabulary. That is your zero exponent law. Now your negative exponent law. Feel free to pause right now and write it down before I explain it. Okay? Here's what it means. If the negative exponent is in the numerator, meaning if it's on top, we move it to the bottom, it is now positive. The process of moving it down and writing it under 1, it is now positive. If it's in the denominator, meaning if it's in the bottom of a fraction, we move it to the top, it is now positive. Then all you have to do is do the exponent. So here's what we mean. 5 to the negative second. I move it to the bottom and I square it. This is what I mean. Here's more detail. So notice that negative exponent is technically on the top. Remember, every number is written over 1. So I'm going to move it to the bottom. That exponent is now positive. It now says 1 over 4 cubed. I can do 4 cubed. 4 cubed is 64. So my final answer is 1 over 64. Remember what I said a couple slides back. A negative exponent does not make the answer negative. Now look what we have here. My exponent's in the bottom. If I move it to the top, it is now positive. So my answer is x to the 7th. So let's go see this. I have 9 to the negative second power. Your best process is first make the exponent positive. You do that by moving it to the bottom. Then all you have to do is focus on, well, what is 9 squared? 9 squared is 81. Write it on the bottom, you're done. Now come over and look here. Notice how that negative is inside the parentheses with the 3.6. We said anything to the power of 0 is, you got it, 1. Okay? So let's take a look. We've already done 4 to the negative third power. Remember, we bring it to the bottom. We wrote it as a positive, and then we actually did 4 cubed, which is 1 over 64. We did that in our examples. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pause now and try this on your own. Let's see how you did. We have negative 5 to the 0 power. That should be an easy one. It should start committing it to your memory. That is 1. I have 3 to the negative second power. Again, I'm going to make that a positive exponent. I then do 3 squared to get 1 over 9. 6 to the negative 1. First, make it positive. It's so important that you first write it as a positive exponent. Then do it. You should be able to do 6 to the first power. It's just 6. So my answer here is 1/6. Now on the next one, negative 4 to the negative second power, or negative 4 to the negative square. I first make it positive, a positive exponent. Don't change your base, okay? Then negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. How'd you do? Okay, good. So let's take a look. Now I'm going to throw in variables here. Everything we just did was all numbers. The rule does not change. Remember, in algebra, we're dealing with an unknown. That's what a variable is. It's something we just don't know yet. Simplify. If you remember what simplify means, go until you can't go anymore. Go until you've done everything you can possibly do, until you've grouped everything together. So if I look at my first one, well, 5, there's nothing I can do with the 5. There's no other number. A cubed, there's no other A, and it's a positive 3. Okay, and I want positive exponents. You always want to have an answer with a positive exponent. But there is a negative squared on that B, so I need to make it positive. So that negative 2 is only going to the B. So my 5a cubed is going to stay on top. My b squared is going to go on the bottom. Now looking at this problem, there's nothing else that can be simplified. I've done everything I can possibly do, and all my exponents are positive. Excuse me, sorry. So that problem's done. Well, let's come over and look at my next one. 1 over x to the negative 5th. Well, x to the negative 5th, I see a negative exponent. I don't want a negative exponent. So remember, if it's on the bottom and it's negative, I'm going to bring it to the top. Once it's moved, once it's changed sides of that fraction bar, the negative sign is gone. It is no longer negative. X to the 5th is now positive, and that's it. There's nothing else we can do. So now it's your turn. Take your time and try these. Pause now and attempt them on your own. Okay, let's see how you did. So x to the negative 9th. Well, technically that negative is on top. So I want to bring it to the bottom. Is there anything else I can do? No, that's it. There's nothing else to combine. There's nothing else to change. Now, if you see 1 over n to the negative 3, the negative exponent's on the bottom. It's positive when it comes to the top. I'm done. If you're sitting there thinking, oh, variables are a little bit easier. For now, you're right. But they will build because we're going to put a couple exponent laws together in the next section. So if I look at this, I can't do anything with the 4, but I see a negative 3 on my C. So I can bring that to the bottom, and then my B has a positive. Now, there's nothing on the B. You don't see an exponent on that B. I'm hoping your brain is starting to realize from topic 2, oh, there's a 1 there. There's an imaginary 1, okay? All right, well, 2's on top. So it's not a 1 this time. What do I do with this 2? Well, it's going to stay. Its exponent is a positive 1. Don't move it. Don't move that number. But my A is a negative 3. So I bring my A to the top. By the process of doing that, I'm now multiplying the 2. And my exponent of 3 becomes positive. My last one. Some of you might have flipped this. But here's what you have to realize. I said it, I believe, on a slide back. That fraction bar changes the sign of your exponent. So if you move it to the bottom and it's negative, it's now positive. So looking at this example, that n is a negative 5. I want to make it positive by moving it down. But my m squared is positive. Don't move it. You don't want to move it. You want to leave it where it's at. Because if you move that m squared, guess what? You would have made it negative. So we only move those exponents that are negative. Does that make sense? Okay. So I have a challenge. Take a look at this one. What value of m would make this equation true? You have these variables with exponents inside. They're all being raised to the power of m. So what would it be so that it would equal 1? And here's what I want you to do. I'm not going to give you the answer. I want you to write it on your notes. Tell me what you think it is and why. And then we'll look at that in class. So make sure that if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, because as people send me messages of problems that they're not understanding from class, videos will be loaded. And always take time to summarize what you learned in your notes.